Do you like cake? Do you like dolls? Do you like decks that can open up with a decent turn 1 board, or possibly devastate your opponent with a 1-card OTK going second? If you do, Madolche is the deck for you. Not going to waste any time. I'm Brian from Channel Huckster. Let's get into it. Start off Madolche with Madolche Imagining, the Stratos of the deck. She searches all of your Madolche monsters. Simple, you run 3 of. Next, we're going to run the 3 Madolche Angeli. She is the Lone Fire of the deck. Tribute her, summon a Madolche monster from the deck. And lastly, we're going to go with Madolche Petting Sasur. The reason I'm going to actually open with these 9 cards right here is because these 9 cards, if you open any one of them and your opponent does not have a way to stop you when you go second, you can actually 1-card OTK your opponent with this deck. Now, just to kind of break down a little bit more for them, Madolches, all the main deck ones, have the ability that when they're destroyed by battle or card effect, they're shuffled back into the deck. That procs things. And, it really starts getting this deck going. This deck can surprisingly throw bodies on board really fast. On top of not only that, being able to summon from the deck, and even more to that, a lot of their effects are actually not even hard once per turn, making it actually kind of abusable. So, like I said, you have the Stratos, you have the Lone Fire, and you have Petting Sasur, where if you have no monsters in your graveyard, you can special summon her from your hand, and then when she's normal or special summoned, you can summon out a Madolche monster from your deck. That target will typically be your Madolche Pudding Cess. Pudding Cess in and of herself isn't really that good of a card, her effects-wise. It's really just the name, since a lot of combos rely on having her as Xyz material on one of your extra deck monsters. So you need to play the one if you really want to get those combos going. She's typically the target you want to bring off Petting Sasur, because Petting Sasur, the monster she summons from the deck, or it can even be hand, typically you want to be from the deck, she'll lower the level of that monster by 1, thus making Pudding Cess a level 4, thus letting you go into rank 4 Madolche monsters. So those 9 are the starters. This is the card that you typically want to bring off, a very important part of the deck. Now to go on to kind of some of the ones we don't really run 3 of. The Madolche Hootcake. Hootcake, he has the ability to banish a card or monster from your graveyard in order to summon out a Madolche monster from the deck. Again, just so much summoning out from this deck. You'll see how fast with just 1 card you can just keep summoning bodies out. Typically, he's one of the ones you'd want to get off the Angeli. I'll showcase a combo after showing the simple 1-card OTK with this deck. But Hootcake's really good. Some people like to run him at 3. I personally like dropping him down to 2. I hate doing it. He's actually one of my favorite art cards in the game. He's adorable, but I just don't feel like the 3's really needed. You can if you want, but 2 works just fine. Same with 2. Another one that some people like to run at 3. Madolche Messing Gelato. You don't really want to run this card at 3. You do not want to see multiple copies of Messing Gelato. You really want to summon him out from the deck. Again, his effect is not once per turn, and his effect is that if he is special summoned, if you control a beast monster, which you typically will by using Hootcake's effect to summon him out, you can add a Madolche Spell or Trap from your deck to your hand. Really strong, again, not once per turn, so you actually can loop him multiple times easily. And last up, rounding off with the hand traps, Herald of Orange Light. I've been playing this card for so long in the deck, and I'm really glad to see that it's kind of picked up a lot in Madolche decks. This card is really underrated, I feel, as a hand trap in general, but you run a bunch of fairies in this deck. You really just kind of want to stop your opponent's plays from being able to stop you. If they try to maybe they have a turn 1 board and you're going second trying to OTK. You really just want to be able to stop those monsters. Herald of Orange Light is incredible for that. It's not once per turn itself either, so you can recycle it back into your hand using a monster that we'll get to in the extra deck. Really strong card, really underrated hand trap, like I said. And that rounds off all the Madolche monsters. Next up, going into the Madolche Spell and Traps, we run 3 Madolche Salon. A lot of people like running this at 1, a lot like running it at 3. That's typically the ratios I see. I like it at 3. This deck, before this card came out, lived and died by its normal summon off of Madolche. This card letting you get that second normal summon can really turn what could be a possible dead situation for you trying to OTK turn 2 into a chance to actually be able to fight back. On top of that, if something would be shuffled back, you can set a Madolche spell or trap. We'll get to the trap you typically set off of, as well as some of the spells right here. You don't typically go off these, but you can in a scenario where you need it. Madolche Chateau, field spell. Some people like running this at 1, 2. I like running at 2. Sometimes, you really need that second copy, so I'd rather have it, all those times, and, the few times I've gone through and I'm like, I just need 1, you more than often want to have that second copy. So when this card's activated, it allows you to shuffle all Madolche monsters in your graveyard back into the deck, as well as boost the power of your Madolche monsters. Really strong. And lastly, if a monster in your graveyard would be returned to the deck instead, you can add it to your hand. That combos off of Madolche ticket here, where if a Madolche card would be returned from the field of the graveyard to the hand, or to your hand or main deck, you can then summon a Madolche if you have a fairy monster, which, like I said before, this deck runs a decent number of fairy monsters. So again, just more summoning out from the deck, more comboing. This deck is heavily into combos, which, leading into that, this is why we run 3 Called by the Graves. Hand traps will destroy this deck. Like I said before, before the more recent wave of Madolche support, if you summoned Madolche trying to get her effect off to Surge and you got Ash Blossomed, you typically sometimes just ended your turn there. It was good. It could OTK if, everything went right, but sometimes, it just, that one card stops your one card from being able to destroy them. So combo decks always want to run Called by the Grave, so you run through that. As for draw cards, Pot of Extravagance, the Madolche extra deck relies on the extra deck, but it doesn't rely on many extra deck cards. You'll actually see that, most of them I'm running 3s of copy. So you really don't mind losing 1. It's not really great if you lose 2, but you can still make it work, and, sometimes you lose 3. That's what you gotta take with Extravagance, but even when some of your ones are gone, you can still put out a lot of damage on board, or again, if you're trying to go first, make a strong board. And that's the thing I like about Madolche. You can make a good turn 1 board, you can OTK going turn 2, you can kind of just blindly go into a deck. And, unlike maybe, say, your control deck, which needs to go first in order to pull something off, this is like Altergeist, Dark Magician, kind of these like trap-heavy ones, or, maybe we'll go with something like Dinos or Ancient Gears that just kind of want to hit hard going second. Madolche can do both pretty well. I wouldn't say it's as good going first, obviously, as these other control decks. We're not really playing a lot of trap lineup, but it can pull it off, so being able to use just Extravagance to get those kind of extra couple cards really helps. And, you'll see that this deck is kind of built to kind of go both first and second. A lot of these cards right here that I'm showing you are for that. This card right here, Dark Ruler No More, I run it at 3. You really need to stop these Unbreakable, Emancipator, Eldritch boards. So this card really helps with that going second. And, like I said, if you're trying to go first, you can set up a strong board with just 1 card. So even if you open this card going first, it's not the worst thing. And you may think, oh, but if you're trying to OTK turn 2, why would I want to activate this card? Yeah, sure, I stop my opponent's board and, all that, and I can go off and, use my monsters to clear their board, but then you can't OTK since this card prevents damage. That's what's great, again, about Madolche. You can make that strong clear going second, set up a decent board yourself, so when your opponent goes, they'll have exhausted, hopefully, all their resources to build this unbreakable board that you just destroyed with 1 card. And, you set up your board, they have hopefully nothing on their turn just to try to go through yours, back to you, OTK. Really good card, Unfortunately, combo decks are really the face of the meta right now, so you really do need to kind of run Dark Ruler No More. And, Cosmic Cyclone, just to round off the spell lineup. like I said, first or second, it's not bad going first. You can set it and use it if you need it. Second, obviously, clear out any back row or something that your opponent might have. So, just good overall rounded card to use in Cosmic Cyclone. That's the spell lineup. Again, it's their spell lineup. It's really the monsters. Like I said, it's combo that'll hit hard, but their spells really help these monsters just come out. And this is mainly the card for the kind of going first. If you really want to lean heavily on going second, or you really want to lean heavily on going first, I'd keep this card at 2 copies. Second, you could drop it to 1, but even though it's a trap, I really think you need it for the going second variant because it still has some useful effects to it. This card allows you to target 1 card your opponent controls and a Madolche monster you control, negate the effects of the card your opponent controls, and then add that monster of yours. And so, again, that gets all your stuff going, all the shuffling. This deck shuffles a lot. If you don't like shuffling decks a lot, maybe Madolche wouldn't be the deck for you, but, it's a really fun deck. It's for that reason. You do want to run this card. It's a great disruption card as well as, being searchable off of, Mesa Gelato, but realistically, you're going to set it off of Salon. And lastly, as I pointed out right here, Madolche Pudding Cess, she's very important for one of your extra deck monsters. And this card in the graveyard allows you to banish this to attach a Madolche from either your hand, deck, or graveyard onto any of your Madolche XE's monsters. Typically, that's going to be Pudding Cess. You could use other ones too if you just want to get their effects off, but Pudding Cess is typically the target for that. We have Infinite Impermanence. This everyone knows what this card does. It's better effect Veiler. Especially good for this deck because, like I said, you can't really have monsters in your graveyard for that Petting Sessor to really start going off on that combo. So it's kind of good, again, just going first or second. That's really, this deck likes to run that middle line right there. And lastly, finishing it off, you have the Gravedigger's Trap Hole. Like I said, combo deck. If your opponent hand traps you, activate Gravediggers. Yes, we run the Trap Tricks with Fleesia for it. That card's really strong and easy to make in this deck. So just being able to kind of burn that opponent also for 2,000 as well as negating that card effect that they're trying to stop you with. Really good going first and, still not even bad going second. So that's it for the Madolche main deck. Let's get on to the Madolche extra deck. Like I said, Madolche extra deck is pretty simple. Most cards are just copies of each other. Madolche Queen Tiramisu, not only the best card in the deck, I'd argue one of the best cards in this game. All she is a rank 4 monster that requires 2 Madolche monsters, 2 level 4 Madolche monsters to make her, and once per turn you can detach a material from her, shuffle up to 2 Madolche cards. Let that be known as cards. A lot of people forget that and think it's just monsters. It's any Madolche cards back into your deck, and if you do that, you can non-target, non-destruction, shuffle back into cards your opponents have. And just reading right there, it says once per turn, and it does not say a hard once per turn. You can summon out multiple of these. You can shuffle out an entire board. This is your board breaker. If you have Dark Ruler no more, and you just throw down 2 of these easily, which you can in a combo, you will take out 4 of their cards, just set yourself up, and they can't do anything going, hopefully, on their next turn, and then you OTK them your next turn. So, easily one of my favorite cards in the entire game. Madolche Teacher Glass Souffle. I know some people run her really at just 2. I run at 3 just in case, because I don't want to banish her, both copies using Extravagance. She's really good for, your going first plays if you need to. She's actually the card that'll allow you to shuffle back cards back into your hand, so how you can kind of just keep reusing the Herald of Orange Lights. On top of that, she's a very key part in the 1-card OTK combo that I'll be showing at the end of this video. Finishing up with the last Madolche XE's monster, Madolche Pudding Cess Chocolate a la Mode. This is the card that you need Pudding Cess for. This is that payoff for running the realistic brick that Pudding Cess is. Again, not once per turn. if a card is shuffled back and she has pudding cess as material, you can summon a Madolche monster from your deck. Not once per turn, not even like soft once per turn for the actual card itself. She can keep doing it with just one copy on her own. She can even shuffle in a card on her own with her own effect, triggering the effect. Super good card. All these Madolche cards really, I feel, are ahead of their time and still hold up even years later. Going into just a couple Xyz cards, Trap Tricks or Felicia, like I said. Abyss Dweller, you can make rank 4s, obviously. If you're going up against a graveyard-heavy deck, turn 2, you can go, when you're going first, you can just kind of sit on Abyss Dweller, really just screw them over. So, Abyss Dweller, everyone knows what that does. Trap Trick or Felicia, it's really just for the Gravedigger's Trap Hole, like I said. But, and again, 2,500 defense, that's not bad to sit on, too, if you need that wall. The Link Monster, this is the only Madolche one I don't run at 3 copies. You realistically could even drop her down to 1. She was very important to the combo back before the Master Rule 2020 change. Now she's not really needed as much, but she basically just kind of protects your back row if she's pointing to Madolche Monster, and it's pretty cool. You can shuffle stuff back if she would be destroyed, and that's not once per turn either. And so, you can kind of just keep protecting yourself if your opponent's trying to OTK you, and, she'll shuffle back. That'll just prompt you to be able to keep summoning things, so super good. And then lastly, just kind of ending off, we just run the Nightmares. Like I said, you really don't go into non-Madolche cards too much in this deck, since Petting Sasur actually locks you into Madolche monsters, but, that's just kind of to finish that off. So that's the extra deck. Let's get into that Madolche combo. And we're back with the 1-card Madolche combo. So let's just say your opponent has this really strong board of 4 cards, doesn't really matter what combination it is, but let's just say for some reason they're not going to activate their stuff just for this. So I'll show you how you can break that board using just Madolche Mageline. Again, other ones can be used too, Angeli, Petting Sasur, but we'll just start off with just the Mageline for this. So you're going to want to normal summon Mageline. Using her effect, you're going to want to add Petting Sasur from the deck. Using Petting Sasur's her effect, you can, since you control no monsters, just summon her from your hand. Since she was special summoned now, you can summon out the Madolche Pudding Cess, and her level is now dropped down to 4 because of Petting Sasur's effect. Now you want to Xyz summon using this card, and really doesn't matter for the other one, but, we'll typically just kind of say this one right here just to make it easy. And using that, you're going to want to go into your Madolche Teacher Glass Souffle. You want to use Glass Souffle's effect in order to detach a material to put some protection on just, herself, we'll say. This is the important part. You want to get rid of the monster that is not the Pudding Cess. You need to keep the Pudding Cess on the card. Now her second effect can go off, but you don't want to use that. So going from there then now, you're going to Xyz Chocolate a la Mode on top of your Teacher Glass Souffle. Using a la Mode's effect, you are going to shuffle back in the Petting Sasur right here in order to proc her effect since she has Pudding Cess as material. Again, keeping the Pudding Cess because you need it for the combo, you are going to get rid of the Madolche Teacher Glass Souffle. Now that she was then there, you can use her effect to summon out a Madolche monster from your deck. We're going to summon Madolche Angeli. Using Angeli's effect, we're going to lone fire her by tributing her, sending her to the graveyard in order to summon out Madolche Hootcake. Hootcake's now going to use his effect to banish one Madolche monster, in which this case we are going to use Glass Souffle over here, and because you need to keep the Angeli here for the combo, in order to summon Madolche Messengelato. Because you control Beast, Messengelato's effect activates, letting you add a Madolche spell or trap, in which that case we're going to add a copy of Chateau. We're now going to use Chateau's effect over here, and because of that, now all these get shuffled back into the deck. Because one was shuffled back into the deck, a la Mode's effect activates once more, and by sending Pudding Cess as the cost right there, you can now summon out another Madolche monster. We're going to summon the second copy of Messengelato. Messengelato's effect activates again, you're going to add Madolche Ticket, to which you're then going to activate Madolche Ticket. You are now going to take the Hootcake and the Chocolate a la Mode and link them into fresh start. This is just this is the older way. Again, like I said, you don't really need her, but just keep it kind of simplistic. You're going to just go into fresh start. Now, like I said, your opponent has, let's just say, a couple cards on field. You are now going to we'll take, I guess, the 2 Messengelados over here, and we're going to use them as Xyz material for Queen Tiramisu. We'll activate Queen Tiramisu's effect. We will get rid of 1 material here, and we'll just say we'll shuffle in the Pudding Cess and the Messengelato right here. I like to send Messengelato, typically one of them, back, just so that way you can kind of have them again to summon out if you need more, stuff to search out, maybe your other field spell and whatnot. So you now just shuffled away 2 cards your opponent controls. Because of that now, and these going here, the effect procs of Madolche Ticket right here, which will allow you to add a Madolche from your deck to your hand. But because we control a fairy with either Tiramisu or Sistart, let's just say we added Petting Sisort. Instead, you can actually special summon her. There you go. You now have 2 more level 4s. Again, turn them into another copy of Tiramisu. Use Tiramisu's effect again, since it's not a hard once per turn. Let's just say we get rid of that. We'll shuffle back in the Hoot Cake and the Petting Sisort right there. And now you just shuffled away 4 cards from them. Now you have almost OTK right there. So using the last 2 copies from the extra deck, you will go into Chocolate a la Mode. And now with those, you have a combined total, because of your field spell, of 8,000 attack points on board, hopefully swinging in for game. That's just a really typical 1-card Madolche OTK combo. There's really a lot of different ways to do it, and honestly, this video would be too long if I showed them all, but that's just kind of the typical just Mageline opening 1-card OTK. If you didn't have Mageline and you opened the Petting Sisort, the combo pretty much is the exact same thing. You just don't have that Mageline on board. So, if you maybe open up another card in some other way, you could just summon that on board for fresh Sistart just to kind of link away and stuff. So it's really not much. It's just kind of minor changes depending what you open with. Anyway, guys, that's the Madolche deck profile. Again, like I said, I like this deck. I'm really glad that cards are now being reprinted for this deck, so that way, people can more freely pay it and not have to drop, like 50 for Mageline and, it was like 50 for Chocolate a la Mode. So the deck's more accessible now. It's still a little up there. I wouldn't say it's maybe as budget friendly as some people would like. You're still going to have to easily drop, at least until maybe more reprints, over 100 easily for this deck, even if you're trying to play budget by cutting like Dark Ruler No More, Impermanence, Extravagance. The main cards you still need will still bring you up to that, but it's a fun deck. Again, like I said, it's easily my second favorite deck in the entire game, maybe even first. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Have a good night.